You're gripping the steering wheel, and it's like 6:15 p.m. on a Tuesday. You are tossing a slightly crushed granola bar into the back seat, just praying it actually hits your kid's lap and not the floor mat, all while you're aggressively trying to merge onto the highway.
Oh, yeah, the classic Tuesday panic.
Right, and your brain is just running this frantic calculation like, if practice ends at 7:30, we get home by 8:00, maybe scarf down some cold pasta, do homework until 9:00, and then we literally have to do it all over again tomorrow.
It's exhausting just hearing it.
And in that brief panic second at the stoplight, you just think, I mean, how on earth did my life become a 204/7 logistics company?
Hmm?
Most families don't realize they're overbooked until it's already happening.
It really is a boiling frog situation, you know? You don't wake up one morning and decide, hey, I think I'll sacrifice my family's sanity today.
No, nobody does that.
Exactly. You just wake up one day and realize your calendar is completely running your life instead of, well, the other way around.
And that deep, bone-weary exhaustion that so many of us are carrying around, that is exactly what we're getting into today. We're doing a deep dive, pulling from some incredibly illuminating excerpts from a piece called The Architecture of the Overscheduled Family by ACTIQO.
Which is such a brilliant breakdown of all this.
It really is. And I want to set the ground rules for this deep dive right up front. Our mission here isn't to preach from some, minimalist Zen parenting pedestal. The goal is to sit down with you as fellow parents who are right there in the trenches and figure out the actual mechanics of this relentless scheduling pressure before everyone in the house completely burns out.
Yeah, because the burnout is just palpable out there right now. And what I really appreciate about this source material is that it doesn't shame parents for getting into this mess.
Right. There's so much guilt already.
So much. It just objectively lays out the reality of what modern parenting has morphed into, which is, quite frankly, just a frantic race with no clear finish line.
Okay, let's unpack this because the symptoms outlined in the text are aggressively relatable. I mean, it talks about evenings that feel like an endless chaotic rush.
Oh, absolutely.
And weekends that just completely disappear.
Yeah.
You wake up on Saturday morning, blink, and suddenly you're staring down Monday and you haven't rested for a single second.
What's fascinating here is that the source heavily emphasizes the timeline of this phenomenon. Like, it shows how slowly this takeover happens.
That is sneaky.
Very sneaky. It's almost never one giant life-altering decision where you say, let's ruin our free time for the next 5 years. It's a creeping, quiet invasion of your family's bandwidth.
Which naturally makes you wonder, right? Like, if we all feel this rushed and we're all standing on the sidelines of these freezing soccer fields, complaining to each other about how exhausted we are, why do we keep building these prisons out of color-coded calendar blocks?
Well, it comes down to a very specific emotional tension that the text identifies. Parents today are living with this constant, agonizing fear of either doing too much or not doing enough.
Yes, the not doing enough is so loud.
And the culture heavily weights the scale toward that end, toward not doing enough. There's just an immense pressure to provide more opportunities, earlier exposure to sports or arts, more varied experiences.
But where does that pressure actually come from? Because I don't remember my parents worrying if I was getting enough, varied exposure when I was 8. They just told me to go play in the cul-de-sac until the streetlights came on.
Right, yeah. It stems from a place of deep love, I think, mixed with this very modern anxiety about the future. The world feels hyper-competitive now.
That really does.
So parents worry that if they don't help their kid find their passion early on, or if they aren't perfectly well-rounded, they'll miss out on some crucial developmental window or just, fall behind their peers.
So it's completely fear-based.
A lot of it, yeah. So if you pull back on activities, you feel guilt that you're depriving them. But if you push forward, you feel guilt that you're exhausting them. You're just trapped in this tug of war.
And the text points out that we're essentially flying blind while playing this tug of war.
Yeah.
Because there is no actual benchmark.
Nope, none.
There's no official parenting manual out there that says, hey, at age 9, the developmentally appropriate schedule is exactly one sport, one creative outlet, and, 4 hours of staring at the ceiling.
Right, and without a benchmark, we just do what humans are evolutionarily wired to do. We look at our tribe, we look to the families around us to gauge what that elusive normal is.
Which is a trap.
A huge trap. You see the neighbor's kid balancing travel baseball, a robotics club, and twice-a-week tutoring, and the panic just sets in. You think, wait, should we be doing robotics? Are we failing by just letting them play rec league and ride their bikes?
I read that part of the source material and immediately thought about it like, try to wear someone else's prescription glasses.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, and you look at that family across the street, and they seem to be totally thriving on back-to-back tournaments all weekend. They're smiling in their matching team gear on Instagram.
Of course they are.
So you think, okay, that's the lens I need to look through to be a good parent. I'll put on their glasses. But when you actually put them on, everything is blurry, you're dizzy, and it just gives your entire household a massive, throbbing headache.
That's a highly accurate way to look at it. I mean, wearing someone else's prescription actively harms your vision. The text warns that these comparisons are entirely misleading because you are only seeing their surface layer.
Right. You don't see the meltdowns in the minivan.
Exactly. You don't see their underlying reality. Maybe that family has a totally different baseline energy level. Maybe they have grandparents nearby who handle all the cooking and laundry.
Oh, that changes everything.
Doesn't it? Or maybe they just have a different financial situation or a totally different set of values. What brings their family into focus might completely shatter yours.
So we can't rely on the neighbors. And we don't have a rule book.
Yeah.
Which means we just end up making these scheduling decisions in total isolation, basically trusting our gut in the heat of the moment.
And relying on your gut in that isolated moment is the exact mechanism that causes what the source terms activity creep.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the text breaks down the actual mechanics of this creep. It's never a malicious plan. It's just, one activity safely becoming two.
Yeah, and then 2 slowly becoming 3.
Right. When you are standing in the kitchen, looking at a sign-up sheet, saying yes to one more piano lesson, feels totally reasonable.
Because in your head, you are compartmentalizing it. You tell yourself, oh, it's just 45 minutes on a Thursday afternoon. How much could that possibly disrupt our lives?
Exactly. They love music. 45 minutes is nothing. But the text forces you to look at the math, and it's never just 45 minutes.
It never is.
It's the 20-minute drive there in rush hour. It's the 20-minute drive back. It's the 15 minutes of arguing about getting shoes on before you even leave.
And the snack.
Yes. Plus the mental load of remembering to pack the sheet music. It's the daily practicing at home. That 45-minute commitment is actually like a 3-hour weekly footprint on your family's time and a massive drain on your mental RAM. The schedule isn't designed. It's just accidentally assembled out of 100 tiny, well-intentioned yeses.
And because it happens one tiny yes at a time, it masks the early warning signals. The text explicitly flags the symptoms of overload, but it notes that parents often miss them because the temperature of the water goes up so incrementally.
Walk me through those signals. If a parent is listening to this in the car right now, what does the source say they should actually be looking for?
Well, it goes beyond just normal physical tiredness. Look for a deeper, lingering fatigue in your kids. Like, do they look inexplicably wiped out on a Saturday morning?
Oh, man. Yeah.
And more tellingly, they might start losing their spark for the exact activities they used to beg to do. Is getting them out the door for a beloved art class suddenly feels like a hostage negotiation? That's a red flag.
I've definitely seen that. The whole, I don't want to go meltdown for something they supposedly love. What about on the parent side? Like, what are our symptoms?
For the parents, the text observes that family time stops feeling like a chance to actually connect. Instead, the home basically becomes a pit stop.
Wow. A pit stop.
Yeah, interactions become purely transactional, like, have you eaten? Do you have your gear? Get in the car. The parents transform from caregivers into pure logistics managers.
That hits hard. You are just endlessly coordinating, dispatching, and making sure the uniforms aren't smelling up the mudroom. It's miserable.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the source outlines the ultimate tragedy of this phase. The equation simply stops balancing.
What do you mean by that?
Well, you are working harder than ever. You are spending thousands of dollars on registration fees, specialized gear they outgrow in a month, and gas. You are spending your weekends sitting in folding chairs in generic gymnasiums.
Oh, trust me, I know those gymnasiums.
Right. Yet the return on that massive investment of resources is plummeting. Both you and the child are extracting less joy, less growth, and less connection out of the experience. It basically becomes a negative return.
Okay, that is incredibly validating to hear, but also totally overwhelming. If the schedule has accidentally built itself into this suffocating monster, and we're officially getting a negative return on our time and money, how on earth do we dismantle it?
The source argues that we have to fundamentally change the questions we ask when evaluating an activity. Right now, the default question is simply logistical, like, can we fit this in or can we afford the fee?
Guilty. I definitely just look at the calendar on my phone and see if there's a white space big enough for a practice block.
We all do. But the text urges us to ask much harder questions. First, Is this schedule actually sustainable? Second, is this creating energy for the child or draining it?
That's a good one.
And third, is this facilitating real growth or just manufacturing stress for the entire household?
So what does this all mean? Because I have to push back on this a little bit.
Yeah.
When I read those questions in the text, like, is it creating energy? Is it facilitating growth? I thought, sure, that sounds beautiful in a psychology textbook.
Right.
But when I am in the absolute thick of it, when it's a Wednesday, the carpool's late, my kid is crying over a missing shin guard, and I haven't even thought about dinner, it is physically impossible to step back
Yeah.
and philosophically evaluate growth.
Oh, completely.
I mean, I don't have the mental bandwidth for it. You are way too close to the exhaustion to see any kind of pattern.
You're touching on the exact barrier the text identifies. Subjective feeling is a terrible compass when you're exhausted. You can't see the maze when you're running frantically inside it.
Yes, exactly.
And that is precisely why the authors introduce a structured framework. They know parents don't have the bandwidth to meditate on their schedule's philosophical impact. They need a quick, objective tool to shift their mental framework from doing more to doing what actually works.
Okay, that makes sense. So how do we actually do that? Because I need something tangible. I can't just operate on vibes here.
So the text introduces a specific methodology called ACTIQO, pronounced ACTIQO. It's designed to pull you out of the emotional chaos and force you to reflect on 4 very specific, measurable factors:
Okay, what are they?
time, cost, energy, and enjoyment. You evaluate every single activity your kid is in against those 4 pillars.
Let's break those down because I really want to understand how a tired parent actually applies this on a Tuesday night.
Yeah.
Let's start with time. We touched on this earlier, but it's more than just the duration of the class, right?
Much more. When the framework asks you to evaluate time, it wants the true footprint, not just the hour of practice. It's the commute. It's the 20 minutes required to wrangle them into their deer.
The shoe struggle alone.
The shoe struggle is real. And it's the disruption to the evening routine, meaning, does this activity push bedtime back an hour, which then ruins the next morning? You really have to look at the total hours consumed.
That makes total sense. And cost, I assume that follows the same logic. It's not just the sign-up fee.
Exactly. Cost is the registration, yes, but it's also the travel expenses. It's the specialized equipment. It's the hidden costs, like the fact that you ordered takeout 3 times last week because this specific activity completely eliminated your ability to cook dinner.
Oh, wow. I never even factored the takeout in.
Most people don't. But when you add all that up, the financial toll of an activity might be triple what you initially thought.
Okay, those first 2 time and costs are pretty logistical. The math is the math. But the next 2 pillars, energy and enjoyment, those feel trickier to measure. How does the text define the difference between them? Because they kind of sound similar.
It's a crucial distinction in the ACTIQO framework. Energy is about the physiological and mental reserve of the household. When your child finishes this activity, are they invigorated or are they a depleted, cranky mess?
Right.
And just as importantly, what does it do to the parent's energy? If an activity requires the parents to constantly nag, fight traffic, and snap at each other in the front seat, it is a high-energy drain activity, regardless of what the kid feels.
Wow. Factoring the parent's energy drain into the equation is revolutionary. We usually just martyr ourselves if the kid likes it. Which brings us to the 4th pillar, enjoyment.
Right. Enjoyment is the actual passion or fun derived from the experience. And here, the text asks a pretty brutal question. Does your child actually enjoy the core activity, or do they just like the post-game snacks and hanging out with their friends?
Oh, that is brutal. I mean, I've definitely paid hundreds of dollars for a sports league where my kids spent 90% of the time picking dandelions in the outfield and just waiting for the juice box.
And that's exactly the kind of realization this framework forces. When you evaluate an activity like that, high time footprint, high cost, massive energy drain on the parents, and the child's enjoyment is basically limited to a juice box, the fog lifts.
Yeah, you can't ignore that math.
A pattern becomes undeniably clear. The text emphasizes that until you measure it against these 4 pillars, you just feel this vague, ambient sense of stress. You can't fix a schedule if you don't actually comprehend its true toll on your family's resources.
And some schedules might actually pass the test. Like, if you run an activity through the ACTIQO pillars and find out it takes some time and cost, but it floods your kid with energy and massive enjoyment, then you keep it. It works.
Yes, exactly.
But the ones that are bleeding you dry, you finally have the data to confidently cut them.
Precisely. It removes the guilt of quitting, because you aren't quitting out of laziness. You are making a strategic reallocation of your family's resources.
I think this builds toward what is easily the most grounding realization of this entire deep dive. It's the thing that stopped me in my tracks when I was going through the source material.
Yeah.
Most families don't actually know where they stand.
It's true. We assume we know, but we don't. We are running the maze without looking at the map. We are just operating on pure momentum and social guilt instead of clarity and intentionality.
We see dance at 5 p.m. on the calendar, and we just blindly go to dance at 5 p.m. without ever pausing to ask what that hour is actually costing our family's peace. This whole source text is a massive reminder of our ultimate goal. The goal of childhood is not to do more. It is not a resume-building exercise.
No, it's not.
The kid with the heaviest calendar does not win a prize at the end of middle school.
The true goal is to construct a schedule that actually supports growth, fosters some semblance of balance, and above all, works for your specific family.
Yes.
Not the idealized version of your family, not your neighbor's family, the actual tired, real people living in your house right now.
You have to design the architecture of your week for the reality of your baseline. And honestly, stripping away the emotion and just looking at the raw, objective data of your schedule through those 4 pillars is a total eye-opener. Now, people are surprised when they actually check. They have no idea the sheer volume of time and energy they are bleeding out into these commitments.
Numbers break the spell. They really do shatter the illusion of that activity creep.
So if you are sitting in a carpool line right now, staring at taillights, feeling that exact crush of overwhelm we've been talking about, if you want to see where you stand, you can do it in like 60 seconds at getactico.com. It's a way to finally look at the map instead of just running the maze.
It's about taking the power back over your own time. But, as we wrap up this deep dive, there is one final lingering thought from the text that I really want to leave you to mull over.
Okay, let's hear it.
We spent this entire time talking about how to better evaluate the activities we schedule. But if we are so intensely focused on providing structured experiences and organized opportunities, what happens when we schedule away the one thing kids might actually need the most?
Which is what?
What if we are completely eliminating unstructured boredom? I mean, if every hour is accounted for, what if those blank spaces on the calendar, the moments where they have absolutely nothing to do and no adult directing them on a field or in a classroom, what if those empty spaces are actually where they figure out who they truly are?